Princess Selene of planet Lunara was known across her world for her calm voice, silver eyes, and gentle smile. She was the only daughter of Queen Leora and King Aldrin, rulers of a peaceful society built on intelligence, harmony, and grace. Yet behind the palace walls, Selene's life was far from easy. She had been born with weak legs that could not support her without the help of a mobility exosuit. The suit wrapped around her waist and legs like shining silver armor, helping her stand and walk. It was advanced technology, but it still required effort, patience, and constant adjustment. While others moved freely, she had to calculate every step. The people of Lunara respected her as royalty, but most never truly looked at her as an individual. When they spoke to her, they bowed deeply, used formal words, and complimented her kindness. Yet their eyes always held a quiet layer of pity. Some whispered that she would never be able to rule the throne. Others believed she would never find a companion of unity, a traditional partner chosen not only for emotional connection, but also for lifelong cooperation, loyalty, and public duty. Every royal heir was required to choose their companion before they officially took on higher leadership responsibilities. It was not exactly marriage, not always romantic, but it was a partnership of great importance. Many noble families had offered their sons and daughters in the early years, usually out of ambition rather than care. But once they spent time with Selene, most left politely, using excuses about duty or travel. They claimed respect, yet their actions showed rejection. Selene never cried in front of anyone. She held her calm expression even when alone. She often spent time on the palace balcony at night looking up at the moons. 3 moons floated above her world, glowing in soft purple light. She found peace in their silence. She believed they did not judge her, nor expect anything from her. She dreamed of being seen not as a fragile royal, but as a capable person with thoughts, goals, and value beyond physical strength. One morning, a new team of engineers and researchers arrived from Earth. The humans had been cooperating with Lunara for several years, sharing knowledge about technology, medicine, and energy systems. This group came to study Lunaran crystal reactors. Among them was Evan Reed, a thoughtful human engineer in his late 20s. He was quiet, observant, and often preferred fixing things over talking. Unlike others, he did not care for titles or status. When introduced to Queen Leora, he bowed politely but did not tremble or freeze as some visitors did. He greeted her with a simple, respectful smile. The Queen, intrigued by his calm response, invited the human team to attend an upcoming diplomatic gathering at the palace. Selene had no strong expectations from these newcomers. She had seen many guests arrive with awe, stay temporarily, and leave with stories. Most admired her people's beauty and grace but paid little attention to her personally. On the evening of the gathering, she prepared politely, adjusting her exosuit and placing a flowing silver gown over it. The suit remained hidden beneath the dress, but she still felt the slight pressure of its grips around her body. She knew she must walk among the guests without showing struggle. The palace hall was filled with floating lights and gentle music. Alien nobles and human delegates exchanged greetings. Selene entered with her usual graceful posture, the exosuit humming softly beneath her gown. She nodded at each guest, offering her standard warm smile. Some greeted her with admiration. Others avoided eye contact, unsure how to speak naturally to someone with a visible device attached to their body. As Selene moved across the hall, adjusting her pace carefully, a small malfunction in her exosuit occurred. The support around her left leg slightly loosened, causing a momentary loss of balance. It was not dramatic, but enough for her knee to bend unexpectedly. The nearby nobles noticed, yet pretended not to see. Some slightly turned their heads away, pretending to admire decorations. Others whispered almost silently. They believed they were being polite by ignoring her struggle. But silence can sometimes sound louder than words. Before she could correct her stance alone, someone stepped towards her quickly, yet gently. It was Evan. He did not hesitate or look around for permission. He simply stepped close enough to offer his arm. He did not touch her without asking. He just held his arm beside her in position that allowed her to choose. She could ignore him if she wished or accept. His eyes did not hold pity or shock. They held respect and readiness, like a mechanic prepared to stabilize a machine without asking if the machine felt embarrassed. Selene paused. She looked up at him, her calm expression unchanged, yet her eyes slightly softened. She gently rested her hand on his offered arm. With steady movement, she regained her balance slowly and safely. The brief disturbance passed, but something else began. Evan did not say any dramatic words. He simply nodded once and asked in a low, polite voice, "Would you like me to walk beside you until you are comfortable again?" Celine answered quietly, "Yes, thank you." Together they walked forward. For the first time in many years, she did not feel like a display for public eyes. She felt like a person walking with another person. They spoke only briefly that night. He did not question her about her condition. He did not sympathize loudly. Instead, he asked her about lunar and energy designs. She responded with interest. She enjoyed talking about science more than personal matters. They discussed magnetic stabilizers and crystal efficiency. For a few minutes, she forgot about her exosuit. She forgot about watching her own steps. She was simply engaged in conversation. After the gathering ended, they exchanged a polite farewell. He bowed slightly, she nodded gently. She returned to her chamber with a peaceful feeling she had not experienced in a long time. The next day, she replayed the moment in her memory. She remembered how naturally he offered help. He had not hesitated, and more importantly, he had not overreacted. He had not treated her like glass. She respected that. Queen Leora noticed something different in her daughter's eyes at breakfast. She asked casually if Celine enjoyed the gathering. Celine replied with her usual composed voice, saying it was pleasant. The Queen waited for more. Celine rarely offered extra comments, but today, after a moment, she added softly, "The human called Evan was respectful." The Queen raised her eyebrows slightly. That was a deeper compliment than usual. She smiled knowingly but did not press further. Over the next week, Celine observed Evan discreetly as he worked on reactor models in the palace lab. She sometimes visited the lab to study records. Evan would greet her briefly and return to work. He did not attempt to impress her. He did not change his behavior in her presence. He simply continued his tasks with calm focus. She appreciated his steady nature. Meanwhile, the Royal Council reminded Celine that she must soon make an official decision about her companion of unity. They suggested several noble candidates again. She listened silently, then declined each with polite reasoning. They grew concerned. One council member, an older advisor named Valen, spoke carefully. "Princess, the people need to see you supported by a strong figure. It will increase confidence in future leadership." Celine replied calmly, "I do not need someone to stand beside me for appearance. I need someone who will stand because they choose to." Valen bowed respectfully but seemed unsatisfied. That night, Celine stayed awake in her chamber thinking deeply. She considered all those who had approached her in the past. Some had offered grand promises, but their sincerity faded when faced with real responsibility. She did not want someone who served her out of duty alone. She wanted someone who saw her as a capable partner. Her thoughts returned to Evan. He had not praised her or made declarations. He simply acted when needed. That action spoke more than speeches. The following morning, she made her decision. She asked for Evan to be brought to the Royal Council chamber. Evan arrived, slightly confused but composed. He bowed to the Queen and nodded respectfully to Celine. He stood quietly waiting for instructions. Celine faced him directly, her silver eyes calm yet firm. She spoke with her usual steady tone, but her words carried significance. "Evan of Earth, I, Celine of Lunara, request that you take the role of my companion of unity." The room fell silent. Some council members gasped quietly. One nearly dropped his tablet. Queen Leora's eyes widened slightly, then softened with pride. Evan blinked, not out of shock but from processing the gravity of the request. He looked at Celine, not at the others. He asked clearly, "Are you certain?" Celine's voice remained calm. "Yes, you are the only one who helped me without making me feel weak." Evan stood in silence for a few seconds. The council watched nervously. Finally, he nodded once. "Then I accept." The council broke into whispers. Some were worried, some astonished, some oddly relieved. Queen Leora stepped forward with dignity. "Then it shall be recorded." Celine felt a quiet warmth inside her. Evan remained calm, as if accepting a reasonable task assignment. Yet behind his calm posture, he felt a new sense of responsibility. He had not planned this, but he could see the sincerity in her request. He would not treat it lightly. After the council meeting ended, Celine and Evan walked together down the palace corridor. No one followed them. The hall was silent except for the soft hum of the exosuit. After a moment, Evan spoke. "Thank you for trusting me," Celine answered. "Thank you for seeing me." Life beside Princess Celine was different for Evan than anything he had experienced before. Being a human on Lunara was already a challenge. Language differences, social customs, and the subtle pressures of alien politics made even simple tasks more complex. But serving as the princess's companion of unity was far beyond ordinary. Every day required focus, patience, and understanding. And yet Evan did not feel burdened. He felt honored. The first few days were quiet but meaningful. Celine insisted on performing as many tasks herself as possible, even if it meant slowly moving across the palace gardens. Evan followed at a careful distance, not rushing, not hovering. He opened doors when necessary, adjusted her exosuit gently, and always waited for her instructions. He did not treat her as fragile, nor did he attempt to take over. Celine appreciated this balance more than she could say. Outside the palace, Lunara's citizens watched closely. Some were curious, some skeptical. A human chosen as companion of unity? It had never happened before. Rumors spread quickly, but Evan did not concern himself with gossip. He had one simple rule: respect the princess's independence while offering support when needed. That was all. Celine found a quiet pleasure in showing him her world. She took him to the crystal gardens, where glowing plants pulsed softly in colors no human eye had names for. She guided him carefully along smooth paths, occasionally testing her exosuit's limits to see if he would assist without overreacting. Each time he remained calm, observing and offering help only when necessary. Slowly she began to trust him fully, not just as a helper but as someone who could truly understand her. "Why did you accept my request?" Celine asked one evening as they walked among the glowing flora. The light reflected in Evan's eyes, making them look almost violet, though he was unaware. He paused. "Because you trusted me," he said simply. "Because you treated me like a person, not a title or a duty." Celine nodded, feeling warmth she had not allowed herself to feel in public before. "Most people avoid me," she admitted quietly. "Even my own kind. They see the suit and assume weakness." "You're not weak," Evan replied. "You just have a different way of moving. That doesn't change who you are." For the first time in many years, Celine smiled genuinely. Not for show, not for others, but for herself. She realized that this human, so different from everyone else, had already given her something more valuable than any gift or honor: acceptance without judgment. As weeks passed, their routine developed naturally. In the mornings, Evan helped Celine calibrate her exosuit, checking every servo and sensor to ensure it worked smoothly. During the day, they attended meetings, diplomatic gatherings, or simply spent time in the palace gardens. Evan often quietly observed the council's debates, taking notes on human and Lunaran governance alike. Celine appreciated that he did not dominate conversations or seek praise. He simply contributed where he could, always careful to respect her leadership. Other visitors arrived occasionally: noble families, diplomats, scientists. Many were shocked to see Evan beside Celine, but he never acted out of pride or arrogance. Instead, he treated everyone politely, including those who doubted him. He never explained why he had accepted Celine's request. The answer was simple: he respected her and he wanted to see her thrive. One day, Celine received an invitation from the Royal Academy of Science. She was to give a presentation about Lunara's crystal energy advancements. Normally, this would be a moment of great stress. Public speaking was difficult, especially with her mobility needs. But Evan offered to accompany her to the academy, not to hold her hand or overshadow her, but simply to be present in case she needed any support. The day of the presentation, Celine adjusted her exosuit meticulously. She felt nervous, but seeing Evan waiting for her, calm and patient, gave her courage. She walked into the academy hall, her exosuit humming softly under her dress. Hundreds of Lunaran scholars and dignitaries were present. She paused at the podium and looked out over the crowd. For a moment, she felt the familiar tension of being watched. But then she saw Evan standing slightly to the side, ready but unobtrusive. That simple presence steadied her. She spoke confidently, explaining the intricacies of crystal resonance, energy conversion, and Lunara's sustainable power initiatives. The audience listened intently, nodding and asking thoughtful questions. Evan answered some technical questions from human visitors, showing his skill, but always giving Celine the primary stage. After the presentation, a few scholars approached her with admiration. "Your methods are brilliant, Princess," one said. "And you are fully capable despite what some might assume," Celine smiled. "Thank you. I had help from a very capable human," she added, glancing briefly at Evan. He gave a modest nod, earning small murmurs of surprise from the crowd. No one expected a human to assist in such a meaningful way, and yet his quiet competence earned respect. The weeks continued with small adventures. Celine and Evan explored Lunara's northern valleys, where crystal caves glowed in unearthly blues and greens. She often tested herself, climbing minor slopes or adjusting her exosuit for longer distances. Evan followed, careful not to restrict her. They discovered hidden waterfalls, caves filled with luminescent moss and strange alien wildlife that observed them curiously. Celine laughed more than she had in years. Evan, too, found joy in these excursions, appreciating the trust between them. During one trip, a minor accident occurred. Celine's exosuit slipped on wet crystal steps. Evan reacted immediately, but calmly. He extended his arm, allowing her to steady herself. She did not falter, not from fear, but from reliance on his steady presence. They both paused for a moment, taking in the glowing cave walls around them. The silence was comfortable. No words were needed. Their partnership was no longer official or ceremonial. It was mutual trust. Back at the palace, their bond became more recognized. Staff and other palace members began to see Evan differently. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of Celine's daily life. They respected the subtle balance he maintained, never interfering unnecessarily, never drawing attention, always offering calm support. Some began to ask him for advice, and though he remained humble, his input was valued. Celine noticed these changes quietly, appreciating how they reflected her own growing confidence. As months passed, Celine began to take on more public responsibilities. She attended council meetings, led diplomatic tours, and even oversaw educational programs for young Lunaran citizens. Where before she would have relied heavily on aides or waited for others to act, she now moved forward with confidence. Evan remained beside her, not as a crutch but as a partner, ready to act if needed, always silently encouraging her independence. The people began to see her differently as well. Citizens watched as she walked gracefully, sometimes with assistance from her exosuit, sometimes moving more freely with practice. They observed a human beside her, not looking condescending, not seeking reward, simply respecting her choices. Slowly, the whispers of doubt faded. The princess who once seemed fragile became a symbol of quiet strength, and the human who chose to stand beside her became an example of loyalty, an understanding that transcended species and tradition. One quiet evening, Celine invited Evan to walk with her on the palace balcony. The 3 moons hung in the sky, casting soft light over the city. She paused, resting her hands lightly on the railing. "Do you ever regret accepting my request?" she asked. Evan shook his head. "Never. You are remarkable, Celine. I wanted to be part of your life because I see you, not because of duty or expectation." Celine's eyes softened. "Most people never saw me," she admitted. "They saw what I couldn't do, not what I could." "You are more than capable," Evan said firmly. "And I'm proud to stand beside you." For the first time in her life, Celine did not feel separate from others. She felt recognized, not for her title, not for her appearance, not for the novelty of being a princess with a human companion, but for who she truly was. And that recognition, gentle as it was, gave her courage. The days continued to flow with quiet adventures, scientific discussions, and diplomatic duties. Celine and Evan became a familiar sight side by side, moving through corridors, gardens, and public spaces. They laughed, they problem-solved, and they explored the galaxy's beauty together. Their partnership was not about romantic expectation, it was about mutual respect, trust, and the power of being seen for who one truly is. Months later, at a grand ceremonial gathering celebrating Lunara's technological achievements, Celine gave a speech. She stood tall, the exosuit now almost a part of her silhouette rather than a sign of limitation. "Our strength," she said, voice clear and strong, "is not measured by what we appear to be alone. It is measured by what we can accomplish together, with trust, respect, and understanding." She gestured subtly toward Evan, standing quietly at her side. The audience recognized the partnership as an example not only of personal trust, but of cross-world cooperation and loyalty. As applause filled the hall, Celine felt a quiet satisfaction. She had found someone who respected her entirely, and through that respect she had discovered her own inner strength. Evan had become more than a companion. He was a witness to her growth, a partner in her life, and a friend who never judged, never faltered, and never sought glory for himself.